Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. On today's show, we have Simon Slupik, the CTO and co-founder of Silvair, also the chair of the Mesh WG at Bluetooth SIG. And we're going to get to him to in a second. He's got lots of experience. He's a friend of a show, and if you listen to this show, you've heard Simon maybe once or twice. Can't remember now, but he's been on the show. We're going to get a little update from him in a minute, but before we go there, we got to talk about the easy folks. Greg Ehrich. That's KeystoneTech.com. Go to KeystoneTech.com. Keep it easy, man.
That's right. And sometimes seeing is believing. Keystone has their new live demo room where they actually have their product on the wall, on a bunch of walls, and you can schedule a time to get an online demo of all their product. You can see it lit. You can see how it performs. And when you see it, you believe it and you sell it. That's what you want to do in lighting.
Keystone, always keeping it easy. Light made easy. Go to KeystoneTech.com. Of course, proud members of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Get educated, get associated, get in here. We're cooking up all manner of stuff. This is the fastest moving association in the lighting business. That's correct. Enough of that. What's happening, Simon? How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Say hello to Greg Ehrich.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Simon. It's been since 2019, Mike. I had to look today, so it's been about 2 years.
Time flies.
Holy
yes.
mackerel.
And but now you see we are all used to those over-the-air stuff, and this is the new normal, how we do business.
You know what? We had such a huge advantage before COVID. Like, we were live streaming. We were like, people were like, oh my God, this is so crazy. Now everybody knows how to do it. It was like, and then they're like, that, you know, what Get a Grip on Lighting was not that complicated. And we're like, yeah, I know. It wasn't, but we did it anyway. So anyway, we're all here. So what's going on?
Well, back to normal, the new normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's things are going well. Of course, we've had this year of uncertainty, I would say, and some things were going slower and some were going at normal speed. It's all about being adaptive, I would say, right? Because you kind of like initially, of course, it was a shock for everyone, but it lasted barely a couple of weeks, and then people got used to it, found their ways of continuing with businesses and even taking advantage of something. So in our turf, Silvair is, we are a pure software play. We just make software for wireless lighting controls, and for us, doing software has been almost the same under COVID or before or now. Of course, we do have more people working remotely or hybrid. Before it was mostly in the office situation, but from our operations perspective, things are mostly the same. Of course, it's different from the market perspective. Of course, in some areas, the lockdowns have been or were, because we mostly no longer have them, at least in our part of the planet, hopefully. So they were an opportunity because we are, or our partners and customers are mostly after retrofit. So doing retrofits in empty buildings definitely made things easier. But of course, the nature and the scope of the projects started to be different, especially in the offices, because I think COVID transformed offices for good. They are going to be different now, and lighting is a significant part of that, and lighting in offices is going to be different. And
I
at the
think
same
that I
time,
think those changes bode well for Silvair as well. I think the type of
oh yeah,
changes you're talking about, intermittent occupancy, room space sharing by multiple people, a lot of the stuff that's coming out that you hear about 2 or 3 days a week or going to the office Tuesday, Thursday, and you know what I mean? This kind of thing is going to make the case for connected lighting as a secondary, but for you that would be a primary thing for Silvair. But it's going to make those type of connected lighting controls more attractive, Greg Ehrich. I see it from a perspective of in terms of renovating these spaces to make them suitable for the. I hate the word new normal. I just hate it. I can't say that. So I didn't say that, but whatever it is that's coming, where there's a hybrid model of people not going to the office and going to the office, I think the number one thing property managers can do is address their lighting and make it controllable in some fashion, or make it employ controls, whether those are Bluetooth or not. Greg, what would you say about that?
Yeah, and I would agree. And I think, that's where the Bluetooth has an advantage a lot of times because as these spaces are changing, the room is changing and it might not be circuited how you want it circuited. And how much of a pain is it to change
Mm.
circuits when you can put the Bluetooth in the fixture and actually address it that way? So I see that advantage. And Simon, when I looked on the website, I think it was your Bluetooth mesh website that you're the chair of the mesh WG. It said why you would do Bluetooth mesh, and there's 3 reasons, and I want to dive into them a little. It says energy savings, user experience, and improved operations. We get the energy savings, right? When you're not there, the lights are off. From an experience standpoint, tell us what you're seeing on that.
yeah, the experience, of course, it depends whether you're the facility manager or your tenant. So there are those two viewpoints, but they both, I think, can be summarized as it's all about flexibility of the setup. And unlike traditional legacy controls, they typically they had been hardwired in a sense. Of course, controls introduce this separation from power plane and control plane. Because before controls, there was just one plane, the copper wire, right? And the line voltage. You break the line voltage, that's your initial way of controlling things. You cut the power. Then you separated things, and there was this power plane, which was completely independent from the control plane, but the control plane still was kind of rigid and fixed. Once programmed, and then going forever. Now, with wireless, and especially with Bluetooth mesh, this becomes very flexibly reconfigurable. That's the key reason, I think, because that's what people, I don't know. I'm in a room today, and it used to be a board meeting room. Now I'm just on my own here, so of course I want different experience of the room, including lighting. And one day it may become a hybrid conferencing room, right? So like 3 or 4 people sitting here in front of a screen and talking to another group or individuals on the other end of the wire, so to speak. So, and we don't know today how it will be used as a room tomorrow or next week or next year, and that's this flexibility that we want, and that's where the ease of reconfiguration, the ease of reshuffling things is becoming very important. And with Bluetooth, you do it with your phone application. That's all you need, right? So that's becoming very, very easy, and I think that's great.
It's interesting you mentioned the user. So there's different user types. You have a property manager. You have the owner of the building. You have then you have the person that's in the space. that, and those people, knowing, moving forward, you would have these fixed offices. That's Greg's office, that's Michael's office, that's Simon's office. You're not allowed to go in there. A lot of that is changing as the information becomes digitized and there's less paper and there's less file folders and these sorts of things. So you're going to see less ownership over certain spaces in the office. So there'll be like a room where you can have a private room, but it won't necessarily be anyone's office. And so how we use these spaces. Do you think that people are going to want to connect to the local lighting within those spaces as users on an intermittent basis? Do you believe that to be true? Because what we've seen is that has not happened. On the front lines of lighting, generally what we see is set it and forget it kind of attitude where you change the lights. The developers think it's too bright, so they take the bulbs out of the fixtures. The lady in HR is getting headaches because it's 50K, not 35K. You change the light or you change whatever there. And then after it's set, people just leave it the way it is. Are you foreseeing that people will actively engage in these environments using devices in the future?
Yes, definitely. That's one of the use cases that is being foreseen as one of the future use cases. So I think we are not there yet. Because mostly of people's habits and to a certain extent it's limited by the existing complexity of such setup. So I think initially it's more about having a couple of scenes to be selectable, like A, B, C, D, and then you even don't need to remember what they mean because you can just try them and see, okay, I like C in this room, and that's just fine. But I'm very much after not over designing and over complicating things, because then people never use that's this old theme of remote controls. Like they have all the features that engineers designed, and people use volume and channel up down and power, and that's it, like 5 buttons, and and they typically have like 50, because from the engineer's perspective they want every feature to be available to the user, and that's terrible. I mean you need to be very careful with this user experience. But if you keep things simple but still give this level of selection to the user, like and many things, I think it's also another great aspect that many things, if done right, they can happen behind the scenes, like dim to warm, for example, or this whole circadian, or like tunable white in general, right? So that's becoming more prevalent in many today, I would say, high-end setups, but it's becoming less and less expensive, and at some point it will be at the same level of having that or not having that. It will not introduce any additional cost, and then at that point you would say, why just don't have tunable white set up in every office if it's just same cost, and it just gives you the option, because that's what it does.
So controls have been talked about a lot, and even when we talked to you in 2019, the interest is there. It's been talked about. Now we're in 2021. In terms of interest versus actual interest in quotes versus actual results in sales, has that gone up since we last talked?
Well, yeah, that's gone up a lot, although from a fairly small base initially. So we see, like, percentage wise, we see like double-digit growth easily, but still on the global scale, the penetration is still very low. So like, to be very open with you, what we're seeing is that still majority of what people are doing, they do bare minimum. I mean, they try to avoid anything that's not necessary. So that's also, in the grand scheme of things, I think it's very good for wireless and Bluetooth mesh in particular, because Bluetooth adds very small increment on top of the bare minimum in terms of cost, complexity, time of commissioning, facility downtime. All that is absolutely minimized. That's been always our key target. Try to get all those associated costs as low as possible, or even eliminate them at all. If you can, one thing, I think we talked about this during the previous conversation. Bluetooth mesh virtually eliminated the control boxes, the central controllers. So traditionally, lighting control systems were associated with the lighting controller, because this was the brains of the system. In Bluetooth mesh, we don't have it. I mean, it's a fully flat distributed system. So this thing, it looks like a sensor, right? It is a sensor actually. It's ambient light and occupancy, but it's the brains as well. It's all the functions, including things like real-time clock, are inside this guy. And if you have multiple of those, they just combine with each other, like collectively intelligent system, like ants, for example, or a flock of birds. So they coordinate with each other and they communicate with each other, but there's nothing else. So one way of looking at this is this is a sensor, but another looking at this is it's a complete control system.
Except it needs a
I know.
purpose. So when people talk about like hive intelligence or mimicking ants or birds or whatever in a flock, and listen, all you have to do is watch Highway 401 in Toronto in fast time, and humans behave exactly like birds when they drive their cars. It's phenomenal how little accidents there are when you look at, I think it's a 24-lane highway, you know, a 12 going in both directions or whatever, and there's off ramps and on ramps. It looks exactly like ants or fish swimming in a school or where, yeah. So there's no difference. That sort of idea of going in the same direction and that natural momentum is there. The problem is that the Bluetooth, you may say it's like that, or it could work like that, except it doesn't have a purpose or a direction right now. And I think that, you talked a little bit about circadian. I actually think that the industry should focus right now on providing people with easy tunability, because tunability makes total sense to people. You dim your lights, it's like a dimmer. So you could have a tuner and a dimmer beside each other on the wall, or if you wanted to have it on an app, I think if you had it on the wall, and people could just play with that little slider, like your volume and your channel changer or whatever, and people would learn that, oh, you could actually change the color of the light and the light level. Like the end user consumer is not aware of that. They understand dimming. They know that they can't dim fluorescent in their offices, although they wish they could, right? And I think a lot of lighting people don't know this, already on top of it. But you can also change the color. And if we were to start off giving end users easy to forget about circadian and we're going to program it and all. If you just told them there's a wall switch on the wall there, or there's an app on your phone, you can change the color of these lights and you can change the light level. If people just knew that they could do that after a system was installed, change the color of the light and its light level using this device, they would start to experiment with this. And then you would see interest building in that type of, I like warm white, I like 5000K or whatever. If you gave people that choice, I think that would be a huge step forward in this field of controls, that people knew that they could do that and that they were able to do it easily. That doesn't happen very often. I don't know. What do you think about that?
So that capability already is built into Bluetooth Mesh. So it's already there in devices. Like the other thing is whether people are aware of that and using that. That's another thing. But from the device functionality perspective, so this is a little switch, and probably we've touched on that before. So it's a Bluetooth switch. It's a self-powered device, so it doesn't require any batteries. It's powered by your mechanical press. So you see, I switched on the lights in the room, and if I have a long press, it dims up. If I have a long press down, it dims down, and then I can turn it off, and it lives forever. I mean, it doesn't require any batteries. You can stick it to a wall. This is the North American form
Yeah,
factor.
that looks better. That looks better. Get that European one out of here. Get that one looks better. Yeah. So,
yeah.
but I mean, like, if you just gave people that ability, like, and so that's not in their office spaces. People do not think of dimming their lights, and they don't think of tuning them. I mean, in some rooms where they see recessed luminaires, but I think that would be, forget about everything else. If we just got to the point, Greg, of letting people know that tuning is 2021's gift to the individual out there in the lighting world. You can tune your lights like a dimmer in 1969. You can dim them, you can tune them, right? That would be such a huge step forward towards the adoption of lighting controls. Massive. If we could just, that little switch there, one of those in every room in every office. Let's start with that.
Yeah, so as I said, this is available today. So actually that switch interacts with this, which is a sensor, but is actually a full controller. So they both talk together, and this one can dim up down, and if it's connected to a tunable white driver, it can change the Kelvin value up or down from 25 to 35, 45, whatever LEDs you have installed. And we can talk very briefly about, that there's one other trend, the underlying trend, which is being carried over from Europe and Asia in part to North America, which is digital drivers, DALI, namely. And DALI in North America, it has some, I think, bad legacy. When we back 10 years ago, then there were some issues with that. But the current DALI is fully interoperable, and it's extremely simple. So you have a DALI driver, and it has a DALI. It's a red connector here, and your DALI. This is a DALI Bluetooth device. So it's again sensor, and it has 2 wires, and these are bidirectional control and power. So you just plug this device into those 2 terminals here, and that's your complete setup. And it can tune colors, it can read energy consumption from the driver, it has the Bluetooth radio in the sensor. So as I said, it looks that simple, and it's very functional. So I think the simplicity theme, we've already delivered that from the product and technology perspective. Now, I think the challenge is really to make people aware that these things are on the market and they are affordable and easy.
And I think that, when I read in your deal too here, it says you strongly believe in the future of open, full, cross-vendor, interoperable systems. And it needs to be that way to make us be able to sell it. So how's it going to get there? You believe in it, but how's it going to get there? How are we going to do this?
Well, this is true.
Simon Says. We're going to play Simon Says. Simon says it has to be interoperable.
Oh yeah, that's fundamental. I mean, your line power sockets are interoperable, right? You plug any device into any wall socket and it just works, and that's what we expect in other product categories, in other functionalities. So of course, Bluetooth has this tradition of being interoperable for audio products, for computer accessories, so mice, keyboards, they all work. A mouse works with an iPad and with a laptop, regardless if it's Mac OS or Windows, and your phone connects to your car. So Bluetooth already knows what it means, and the same concept is brought to Bluetooth lighting controls. That these devices I've been showing you, they are all from different vendors. So this is made in Japan, and this is made in Germany, and this is made in Switzerland, and the other stuff is made in America, and you just combine them because they support the same standards. So I believe we have very nicely structured those standards, and they are actually covered by two standards organizations. One is responsible mostly for what we define as intra-luminaire, so whatever gets inside the luminaire, and this is DALI. And this is stronger and stronger, and I see many companies in North America really looking forward to that, and even U.S. Department of Energy, they are really looking forward, because DALI, together with a family of standards, it defines not only how a sensor connects to a driver, but they also define the profile of the physical opening in the luminaire and the connector. So it's like, I call it USB for lighting. It's a standard plug and standard socket for an add-on. So at this point, we have everything from the standards perspective to enable luminaire manufacturers to make luminaires with just a socket, and then sensor manufacturers making sensors that just plug in and work like USB. I mean,
So the dolly driver versus a non-dolly driver, is there a big cost difference?
I believe it's negligible as we speak. It used to be, but now, like from the components perspective, like what's inside the DALI driver, there is no difference, because every driver today has a microprocessor already. So whether that microprocessor knows how to speak DALI or it knows how to speak the analog 0 to 10, it's the same effort. It's just different language. So, and 0 to 10 only works one way. You provide the control voltage and the luminaire goes up or down. With DALI, you use digital language to tell it go to 50% or go to 80%. And by the way, you may ask the driver, okay, by the way, what's your wattage, or how many hours have you been working in this luminaire? And so it provides this wealth of data points that can be transferred the other way. So you can look at your dashboard and say, hey, this is my energy consumption by the lighting system, and by the way, I see one of the drivers is overheating now. So that opens another huge area of maintenance. But that's the next step. I think we are going there step by step. We don't want to introduce everything. It's just by introducing this digital communication between a driver in a luminaire and the wireless part. It's very important, because you get everything from luminaire to your dashboards or whatever supervisory systems you have, and you also have in the other direction from this little switch to tell the driver, okay, go to 27 Kelvin.
What you're saying is that it would be a lot easier if they all spoke the same language.
Yes.
Yeah, like makes sense.
And the language
right?
is defined today, and that's a beautiful part. And one thing that's changed quite recently, I mean, definitely in between our previous discussion and today, is that Bluetooth and DALI are now working together. So one defines the intra-luminaire standards, the opening, the connector, the two wires that connect, and whatever data is going back and forth. And the other defines the wireless part of that system. And they very nicely plug in together, because there's no point of having wireless between drivers in a linear luminaire, because they are all connected anyway. So wired inside makes sense. Outside, luminaire to luminaire, wireless makes more sense, and that's where Bluetooth comes in. But the important part is that what happens at the border between those two is also covered by standards. And there is a certification program for that, and that's exactly what this Bluetooth and DALI Alliance liaison is about. It's very important. I think that was the missing link, before. Now I would say we have like everything that's needed is covered by the standards. So the next step, of course, is the role of the product companies to deliver products that comply to those standards, right? This is where we are today. I mean, there are products available, but there are also many in development. And the next step, of course, is to educate people. It's your role, right? It's your purpose to tell the installers community and the distributors, okay, hey, you should be paying attention to these things because they matter. And they provide you with this long-term technology platform for your future functionalities and
I want to
needs.
answer that on the behalf of Nailed Greg before you go.
Yeah.
We'll think about paying attention to it. We're not sure yet, though. That's kind of where everybody is. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's, so now you got DALI, eh? You guys are ready to cook now. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think we need demand from the end users, and we need demand from the, like, we have to reach, we have to tell consumers that tunability is as easy as dimming if you get the equipment right. Then you can change the color of your lights too. After that, I think it gets too complicated for the consumer, or the end user, the office worker. Dim and change the color. That's where we're at now. And and if they started asking for that, Greg, then the distributors would be like, okay, Simon, what do you got? Let's give it to me. You know what I'm saying? There's like distributors and contractors, they don't like to go out and tell people what's up all the time. They like to listen to what their customers are asking for and give them that, Sorry, Greg, that went longer than I thought.
No, this ties in exactly what I want to ask you now, Simon, is real world applications. What can you give us some case study? I know I saw it on the Bluetooth SIG website, but give us some real world applications on who's doing this right now and what they're doing.
Yeah, so of course there are several application areas, and offices is definitely one of the leading area. People do retrofit projects. They replace old lights with LEDs, and then if this incremental cost and effort of adding Bluetooth-based controls is very low, then of course it's a great opportunity to make lighting much more functional and future-proof. So we see many projects, retrofit projects in offices implementing Bluetooth lighting controls. That's definitely one area, and I think there are three drivers there. One is the end user facing functionality. Definitely, Michael, you were mentioning that many times, like tunability. That's the end user feature, right? The other is energy conservation. Definitely, no people in the room, turn the lights off. I mean, it's very simple, but you need controls for that. And with Bluetooth, it's extremely easy to implement, and the savings are obvious. So the payback is very short on that, and it's a very low hanging fruit. And the third area, so functionality is number one, energy savings is number two, and number three is this maintenance part. Now, as of today, increasingly more lighting setups are, from the contractual perspective, they are as a service. So the facility owner, they do not own the lights. They just have a contract with another party who provides lighting, and the lighting provider, they need to make sure that everything works, right? If you have a number of buildings as a provider, and each building has thousands of lights, then statistically the lights will be breaking, right? So you will have like 3 out of, say, 200,000 failing every day. But now tell me which 3. That's the challenge, right? So if you have a system that tells you, okay, that light has gone down, go and replace it. And even better, if you have a system that would tell you, okay, this will be down shortly because it's overheating, or that there is some weird problem, and the DALI driver, by the way, can report that, over voltage, over current, overheat, voltage spikes, like all that can be reported. So you can see, okay, one is behaving differently than the rest. Of course, you can proactively manage that, and that's great from your customer satisfaction perspective. So it's like, I really like telling that story from the hotel perspective, because like replacing a light before it breaks, it's a huge value compared to replacing a light when the guest reports a broken light, right? It's a completely different level of service and customer satisfaction. And the same applies to office, and especially if you're in this light as a service situation, then you as a service provider, you need to know it's all working well. And if something breaks, that you're the first that wants to know, not your customer. So maintenance is a huge thing, and not
Yeah, but
only in the office.
that's something that's never been. I mean, we've been talking about that for 20 years, Simon. Going back to the old, um, you know, Cat 5 cable in every fixture, people have been talking about, knowing whether the ballast is out or the lamps are out. And I've looked into this. And so from the way I see it was that they would be measuring the energy consumption of the fixture, and if that energy consumption went down to zero, we knew it was like on the old fluorescent days, you would know it was the ballast that was out. If it went down if it was a 4 lamp fixture and it went down by 25%, you knew you had a lamp out. And so you could see this information, but it wasn't, it was told, it was conveyed to the hub, the lighting hub, by energy consumption data or amps, right? So
Mhm.
how does Bluetooth know, or how does DALI or whatever the communication protocol that's doing this, how does it know when a driver is going to fail? Like what would it say to the system? You'd get an alert saying driver in fixture 321, which is on the 21st floor in office A. Change the driver because it's going to blow in 2 weeks, or it's getting hot, or how would it know? What
Yeah, it
information
can
would it
do
say?
that. So DALI defines about 80 different parameters that are reported by a driver. So temperatures, voltages, power, and they are bucketed such that they are reported by a driver itself or by a driver on behalf of the fixture. So actually, the driver can say, my power load is this and that, but I see that my fixture is not drawing any of that, right? So that gives you this additional information. And now this, I mentioned DALI and Bluetooth working together, and these liaison agreements and the resulting specifications, they DALI has been doing this for years, and now Bluetooth has a very precise mapping of this data into Bluetooth data. So you exactly have access to all those parameters, and you know what they mean. So your supervisory software, it's software again, but it can, receive all that and say, okay, I see all those parameters are within the norm, but one or two are way above, which means something. And now, it's down to what the software, how it interprets those parameters. But in the end, it's exactly what you're saying. Of course, we have lighting systems are typically, when they are commissioned, they are using reflective floor plans, right? So each fixture is mapped to a particular location on a floor plan, and therefore, if this driver in that fixture reports something, that you can instantly map that to a physical device. Okay, that lamp is too hot. Something's wrong with that. Let's go and check.
And what percent of the jobs that you've done or these case studies that are real world applications have DALI drivers? I know you might not know offhand, but just if you had to guess, is it half of them? Is it a third of them?
In Europe, 100%. In North America, about 10%. So
10.
yeah, we are definitely North America. It's still a lot of work to be done, but it's all available, and the price point, as we discussed, has equalized. That's very important, and the variety of drivers is equal. I think they are all in distribution and they are all standardized. So I mean, you can even mix them in a single fixture. Like if you want uplight and downlight, and Signify driver works best for your uplight application, and Osram works better for your downlight, then you can put the two together and they will work, because that's the level of standardization in DALI that we have, and that's very good. So I think it's again, companies who are aware of those benefits, like remote diagnostics management, they, it's obvious for them what to do. But this opportunity is mostly in educating the market about the opportunity, because many people just don't realize and don't know, and that's where we are. In Europe, DALI has been for 20 years, and nobody uses anything else. But in North America, it's been 0 to 10 system until now, right? So it takes. I think that there weren't enough advantages of DALI before those inexpensive, easy to set up control systems like Bluetooth Mesh. But now the incentive is very obvious.
Have you had any exterior applications?
Yes.
For lighting?
Area lighting is very popular using Bluetooth. So parking lots, parking structures. I'm not sure still if parking structure is exterior or interior. It really depends. Yeah. But definitely this is the area. Gas stations, they are very popular. Car dealerships, these sorts of applications. They all require some basic lighting controls, like basic scheduling and astronomical clocks and occupancy reaction. Because say if you have a car dealership, then lights on the parking lot, they should react different when the shop is open, and they should react differently when it's not open, right? So it's this it manifests through the lighting behavior. It's open closed state. People like that, and again, it's quite easy to set up. And of course, there has been always this concern about how far in terms of distances can you go with Bluetooth. So of course, with Bluetooth Mesh, you can go over multiple hops, but there still needs to be a radio range between two adjacent like poles, for example, and that requires paying some attention because it's mostly about how your antennas are engineered. So typically indoor, an antenna is embedded in a driver itself and it has sufficient range. For outdoor applications, typically you have a little pole antenna sticking out like a rubber, 1.5 inch high thing. It multiplies the range, and it's a matter of like you select your weatherproof or waterproof, or it's different sort of equipment in many areas, not just wireless performance for outdoor and indoor. So that's definitely
But
something.
Simon, the most definitely the biggest business case for this technology is in outdoor street lighting. There's no other application that I can think of that has can have the greatest environmental impact, the most energy savings, the most health benefits. So if we're able to lower the Kelvin temperatures, tighten the beam angle, reduce the light level, turn it up if there's first responders in the area and they need more light for that area, turn it back down for bird migrations and for dark sky reasons and light pollution and light trespass. The municipalities should be looking at this technology, especially with the integration with DALI now, immediately to solve if they I think the International Dark Sky Association should make Bluetooth mesh and it as part of dark sky certification moving forward. Like you have to have this ability in order for your town or whatever, or like a premium level of certification would be the inclusion of this so that all the lights could be turned off on certain days if there's animal flights or wildlife or something like that needed. I absolutely see it as one of the easiest places and with the best business cases for outdoor. Greg, I mean, is there? Simon says, is there anything else we can roll with here, brother? I mean, it's pretty. It's pretty. When did you guys formalize the relationship with DALI? That's one thing we didn't ask.
2 years ago, or a little bit less, maybe 20 months ago, and that's when it started. And yeah, it's been going great. I mean, we released this interface specification
It's a no-brainer.
earlier this year, yes, and it's a great step forward. And now we are jointly working on a combined certification program, because currently
get you guys into the dark sky universe, because this is absolutely, I'm so passionate about this issue. This is absolutely fundamental for the lighting industry. Has all of the technology it needs to solve the light pollution issue, period, end of the story. Every European town should, in the next 5 years, should be dark sky friendly because of this, and then all the US towns will follow 10 years later. But yes, you guys should do it right now, because it's such a wonderful solvable environmental issue, and the controls just ice that cake with DALI so perfectly. The towns could know which street lights were out. They could lower the Kelvin temperature, reduce the light output. I mean, it's just such an obvious application, a massive application too, obvious and enormous at the same time.
I fully agree that the technology is available for that. It just takes one or two good product companies to do that, because like the features you mentioned, they are different than the feature set required for offices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because in an office you do not respond to a fire brigade truck or these are the details that matter. I mean, it's like you have,
it's less complicated though, Simon. It's more obvious. The market is bigger, and it's the same everywhere. Like it's not like there's different types of commercial applications. This guy's selling art. This guy's selling something different. There's Street lighting needs to be lower Kelvin temperature, less light, controllable, turned up if necessary. It's simple, easy, obvious, and enormous marketplace. And I just
Call for action.
yes, right now, listen to Starving for Darkness with Jane Slade and I as well. Not you, Simon. You can do whatever you want, but all the listeners out there, if you're interested in other more stuff on the darkness thing, go ahead.
My hobby is deep night sky photography. So, I'm in the same audience. I mean, light pollution is something that is really something that's
it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible, and you see increasingly more and more of that for no apparent reason, because the technology to nicely take care of that is available.
Take Zakopane, okay, which we were talking about before we started recording, where my father-in-law is from, right? Beautiful ski village, right? Before they had HPS lights on the ski hill at night, orange and all that sort of stuff, not that offensive. They changed them to 5,000K LED, and you can see them 100 kilometers away now, right? And now you're trying to look through your telescope in the Tatra Mountains in Slovakia, and all you can see is the light from the ski resort 100 kilometers away in Zakopane. This is a disaster. It needs to stop happening immediately. It's we have all the technology.
Yeah, and especially as nobody needs that much light, right? It's just, it's like the story in general with power, that power is nothing without control. So you can say the same here, right? So controllability is fundamental, because then really it can serve the purpose. Other than that, it's abusive almost all the time.
It's a trespass. Simon, always a pleasure, brother. Thank you for being a guest on the show again. And
yes, thanks for having me, and looking forward to perhaps some more episodes in future with some more updates. In the meantime, yes, let me know if there's anything I could help with. I'm very much for this educational part and evangelization part. So yeah.
And
Thanks,
folks,
guys.
if you made it to the end here with us today, you can't forget about the easy folks. They make it so easy down at KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. Greg, Ehrich.
Schedule a live demo with them, check out their products, see it in action, and go sell them.
And of course, longtime members of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. That's right, Keystone and Nailed together for 12 years, something like that anyway. And why don't you, distributors out there, why don't you join us? That's right, we have LS Evolve. And as soon as we stop pressing record, I'm going to talk to Simon about doing some education on LS Evolve about Bluetooth mesh. Yeah, there you go. So I'm just about to ask him, as soon as we stop recording, if he would help the distributors out there get a handle on this Bluetooth mesh and DALI and all this kind of stuff and how they can sell it. So you out there, you should join Nailed as well. Go to NAILD.org, KeystoneTech.com. Folks, thanks for listening. Bye for now.